ignore, just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
We need to create a religious and a scientific doctrine so that African slavery won't appear that bad after all.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only.
Well, my theory was, I wrote the paper in 1969. I wrote a paper called The Crest Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. And the sole reason behind writing that paper was an attempt to understand the behavior of white people in relationship to all people of color, every place in the world, black, brown, red, and yellow people. And the paper was presented to the Americans at the National Medical Association, the section on psychiatry in neurology, because back in 1969, the Black Caucus in the American Psychiatric Association, we had said that racism, and when we talk about racism, we're talking about the white supremacy behavior of white people, that racism was the #1 mental health problem in the nation, and it was the #1 cause of other mental health problems. And I wanted to understand what this thing of racism really is all about, because it's the thing that has caused woe and misery and suffering for the vast majority of the people on this planet that are classified as non-white. And in my attempt to understand why the necessity of white people to keep saying that white is superior and that the condition of non-white is inferior, and the more I thought about it, in conjunction with an idea that a friend of mine had, that racism was a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people, I put those ideas together with what we know about genetics, what we know about the condition of skin whiteness itself. The condition of skin whiteness is the genetic inability to produce skin pigment called melanin. This is a genetic recessive trait. It is a genetic deficiency state, not as defined by Francis Welsing, but defined by geneticists and dermatologists, that the inability to produce the skin pigment of melanin or melanin pigment is described as albinism. And I think that white people, even though most white people are not consciously understanding their problem in genetics, they are certainly aware that they are genetically dominated by people of color. That's why it was a statement, one drop of black blood makes you black, because people of color have the genetic capacity to annihilate white people. And so unless white people control the reproductivity of people of color, then we can postulate that perhaps one day there won't be any white people. And I think that the very survival of white people necessitates that they project genetic inferiority on people of color, because it is they who really are aware that they are genetic recessive and perhaps genetically inferior to people of color. And I am not saying this to call the condition of skin whiteness to say, well, no, white people are inferior. I'm not saying it for that purpose, but I think that it is of prime importance for the majority of people in the world to understand why it is that white people have to, the effective majority, large numbers of white people, have to move in a hostile and an aggressive way against people of color, and have to constantly focus on it's you who's genetically inferior, because they realize that there's something wrong with their genetic status.
Start renaming people and places. Replace African names with Arabic and European names. This will disguise their true black identity.
Let's change the criteria for defining race. For example, 1 drop of Negro blood in America makes you a Negro, no matter how light the skin.
But now let me say, this chart that I held up a moment ago is very important in respect to this question of why I think there may be what proves a basic difference. But I'm going to say that if there were not a basic difference in intellectual capacity in the past, there probably will be a basic difference between black and white intellectual capacity in the future, simply because of the reproduction patterns. And these are Census Bureau data, and this is the most threatening aspect. And what it indicates is that for the black women of the lowest intellectual social class, which are rural farm women, generally the education is least, the average number of children is 5.4. For women with college degrees, it's 1.9. And so this is definitely unfavorable. It is reproducing far more at the bottom end and not enough to keep even at the top end.
Dr. Shockley, can
For
you
whites,
explain?
let me just finish this. For whites, the numbers are also in this direction, but nowhere nearly as severe.
Dr. Shockley, I think that in all fairness, you should explain to the audience why it is that you have, first of all, you have a very large segment of the black population who are on farms, who are deprived in cities. Why don't you explain at the time that you're showing this, who is keeping black people in a situation like they're in? I mean, it could be, you could turn it around the other way, where you could have very large numbers of black people who are exposed to educational opportunities like white people, who are exposed to housing, who are exposed to health facilities. Why don't you explain that at the same time that you put figures like that?
I'm sure you would explain it.
No, but
Yes, and when reporting ancient African history, reverse the standard. No matter how dark the skin, woolly the hair, or thick the lips, you don't have to be a Negro.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white influences.
When all the ancient historians contradict your theory, we'll just discredit them.
I would like to ask a question, and Dr. Shockley, if you could answer it yes or no, I would appreciate it. Do you believe that black people are inferior in intelligence because of their heredity?
I have a standard statement. It is not yes or no. It's memorized. I say at the same time every time, I think. What I say is this. My research leads me, and it's a tragic conclusion, really. My research leads me inescapably to the opinion that the major cause of the American Negro's intellectual and social deficits is hereditary and racially genetic in origin, and thus not remediable to a major degree by practical improvements in environment.
What?
The major cause of the American Negro's intellectual and social deficits is hereditary and racially genetic in origin, and thus not remediable to a major degree by practical improvements in environment.
All right, if you believe that the position relatively of black Americans to white Americans is based on a genetic inferiority, and I will accept the responsibility for that word, then what do you see as the solution to the problem?
Well, I see the first aspect of this is to prevent the problem from becoming worse by dysgenics. This first word that
Would you
I
translate
mentioned.
dysgenics for me and the audience? Would that be sterilization?
No. Dysgenics, you see, means what that other chart I showed you says.
Should blacks,
the least effective element.
Should blacks be sterilized?
No, I have a.
But if blacks are a problem, and we do not allow.
This is inhumane, and
Dr.
I think one can find more humane solutions to this.
Well, then how would
solutions to this?
Well, then how would then
So you don't have a record, or of black police officers saying, "Oh, I shot that white male. I thought he had a weapon." There's no record of that. But we have, the record is, gross with innumerable instances of a white male in uniform. Could be a 14-year-old black male, or it could be a 45-year-old black male. I shot him, I thought he had a weapon. And then that's called justifiable homicide. Now I say deeper, what is going on is that within the white male's brain computer is he looks at the black man and he thinks about the black man's genetic power that resides in the genitals. And that, in his mind, subconsciously, is a weapon. Do you see what I'm saying? Because, see, we never talk about these issues. These issues that I'm talking about, you see, I would guess that they've never been talked about in the history of television. You see, to talk about what is actually going on around this issue of fear of genetic annihilation.
still haven't had reparations. We still haven't had like this healing, truth and reconciliation kind of
If
stuff.
we had reparations, would you be getting a check?
No, I'm not. I don't actually identify as African American. I identify as black.
And hip hop is this: 1, 2, 3, 4, hit, ah, and ah. The more relaxed you are, that's what makes it hip hop. This is the first thing I want to say to you. You want to do hip hop? You got to stand like this. In a hip hop head, we have this: boom, bam, every time, or Your hands are always like this. Start out just hitting it,
Like, would somebody who moved here from Nigeria get a check? No. There's a Pan-African diaspora.
I took some of this from an African piece. In the African piece, it was like this, but in hip-hop, it's like this. See, there's a difference.
So I'm part of the Pan. We all go back to Africa.
It's all in your attitude. It's right here in your faces and how you dress. It's the way you look. I want to tell you another thing that makes hip-hop hip-hop.
Hip-hop dancing. Vaudeville. 2 steps, running man. Twist. Running man. Twist. Scissors. That's jamming.
Yeah, we all have a black mother eventually.
Hello? Understand, I'll cut your frickin' head off, you understand, you bitch. We're gonna kill you and your family. Now that little dog's in the backyard, I'd like to chop your head off, bitch.
What?
It's all lies about Trump. It's all twisted spin, half-baked BS. And then she did it to me. We have scored a direct stab in those sons of bitches' hearts. We gotta keep running the knife in, though, folks. We gotta keep running it in there. Not worry what they're doing, Dutch. Just, you want to fight? You're getting it. The will of the Republic will dominate this BS. Yeah.
1776, baby.
1776 will commence again. You like it? This is just the info war. Imagine you get in a physical fight with us. It's over. You wanted to overrun us and poison us and take our families and kill us? You will die, not us. I'm a pioneer. I'm an explorer. I'm a human.
Get away from me, racist! She's God! He's on loose! He's on loose! Never stop me! Racist!
I've had enough. Let me explain something to the New World Order, okay? You're not getting our guns. 1776 started when you tried to get them, you bastards. And as Charlton Heston famously said, from my cold dead hand, you sons of bitches. Are you a Muslim to your 5-year-old kid? No. Boom, blow your brains out. That's not how you open a can of pickles. To feel what the children are feeling. God almighty. Folks, we gotta get good people to stand up against these people.
I will cry at a commercial. I'm interested in most phases of data processing.
Fire-breathing dragons.
Type A, I'm not. Comfortable, caring, and serious about a relationship, I am.
I'm really looking for somebody I can feel special about, and I don't encounter people like that very often, and I'm hoping you're one of them.
Where are the men in this world? What the hell have we become?
Are you that woman? Please give me a call.
And you know that a journey always begins with the first step. And I hope that if you like what I'm trying to say, or you'd like to know more about me, to please write.